Today we're going to be testing the 127 grain bullet from Lehigh Defense. I'm shooting it out of a 270 Winchester at about 3,150 feet per second. I want to thank from Lehigh Defense for sending me a sampling of these bullets for free so that I can test it in these blocks and you guys could see the performance for yourself. We also have some new blocks from clearballistics.com, and I want to thank them so much for sending me out these fresh blocks. As you can see, I buggered up their old blocks that I had purchased from them, and they were generous enough to be able to send me out some new blocks for me to be able to do some testing for you guys. And hopefully I don't mess these blocks up like I messed this one up. But let's go ahead and get on the testing. We've got the chronograph set up close so that we can see the impact velocity. Let's get to testing. Impact velocity was 2,874. Penetration was 27 3/4 inches. Let's go ahead and take a look at the block.
As you can see, the bullet penetrated about 3.5 inches in before making a wide wound channel up to about 13.5 inches. So we have about 10 inches of a wound channel. That's typical of what I've seen in the past. What I've not seen in the past with Lehigh Defense is this very long penetration before actually having expansion. So I'm a little surprised to see this because I've tested this bullet multiple times before this camera, and this is the first time that I've seen this. So normally I see it penetrating about 1 inch and then having that wide wound cavity. So I'm very surprised about that. We did have good shedding of the jackets. We had some larger particles, so this was from the nose. This is probably why it penetrated so deeply, is that instead of having many little petals, we had one large petal, and then we have a couple of little smaller petals that are in the block. And then back here, 27.5 inches for the base of the bullet. That is typical penetration for the Lehigh Defense bullet. So let's go ahead, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, since we have 2 of these Clear Ballistics blocks, I'm going to go ahead and turn these around and take another shot because I want to see if it's going to do this again.
Okay, impact velocity was 2,875. The last one was 2,874. Penetration on this one was 25 inches. This is the performance that I've seen on the last 3 gel tests that I've done before this video. So I did gel tests on this bullet before this video on 3 bullets. This is exactly what's happened. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at it. The other one, call it however you will.
Okay, we penetrated about 1 inch into the block before starting expansion. Expansion proceeded until about 11.5 inches and then came down into our normal wound channel. And then here is our bullet in the block. So this is what I've seen in previous testing with the Lehigh Defense 127 grain. I never saw that other wound channel that we saw in the first one. So that was, I would say that other one was a failure of the bullet. It still did its expansion. Here's the old wound channel, again going in this way. It still did its expansion, but there was something was off with this one. This is normal. This is a failure.
Okay, I'm gonna try shooting the blocks one more time, this time using a starting charge of Ramshot Hunter. Okay, impact velocity was 2,624. We had 27 inches of penetration, which was excellent. We had great expansion, and again, the bullet entered around about 1 inch and 3/4, and then started its expansion. So excellent performance. This was shot at a distance of 100 yards using a starting charge of Ramshot Hunter.
The bullet entered about 1.5 inches before beginning its expansion. You could see the wound track that went from about 1.5 inches. The furthest pedal was found at about 11.25 inches. And the bullet's final resting place is right here at 27 inches. You can see it right in there. Okay, we're back at the reloading bench. I've got a drop chart from JBM Ballistics. Coming out of my 22.5-inch barrel, the muzzle velocity is 3,148 feet per second. The testing we did today will simulate between 100 and 150 yard shot and 225 to 275, depending on what the velocity is out of your particular barrel. So I think that's actually pretty good testing. I would like to see it slower. Lehigh Defense claims that the bullet works reliably down to 1,500 feet per second. I actually believe them on that. There are some bullet manufacturers I don't quite believe, but I do believe them because of the design of their bullet. But we can get into that in just a second. So at 300, your wind drift is going to be 6.1 inches, and at 500, your wind drift is going to be 18.2 inches, and your velocity at 500 is going to be 2100. So if the wind's not batting you around, then supposedly that bullet is going to expand reliable all the way down to 500. I don't think most people have any business shooting an animal at 500. The vast majority of people don't have any business shooting an animal past 200, in my opinion, simply because they don't practice, they don't get enough trigger time in, and if you're not getting trigger time in, then I don't care what bullet you're using. You're not going to be able to place an accurate, ethical, humane shot. So the expansion on the shanks here is between 0.278 and 0.288. The unfired shank is actually 0.276. No, let me see. Yeah, 0.2765. I think that was what it was. Yep, there it is. Okay, so an unfired shank is 0.2765. The shank weights, we got 63.2, 63.6, and 64.1. You really can't tell much of a difference between one to the other. These are the impact velocities of each one, and then the penetration, of course, which we already went over earlier. The air temperature of the day was 42 degrees and dropping. It was actually snowing by the end of the video. The stability factor was quite poor. That's because of the length of the bullet in relation to the twist in my barrel. My barrel is a 1 in 10 twist. Lehigh Defense recommends a 1 in 9 twist, but I did call Lehigh Defense, and they told me that it should work in a 1 in 10 twist. In fact, their test rifle is a Savage 1 in 10. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And sure enough, it works really well. Occasionally, a bullet that's marginal in your twist will actually work really well, but you have to test it. I had a 22-250 that I used to shoot a 65 grain Game King out of, and a 65 grain bullet doesn't really have much business in a 22-250, but it shot in under a dime. I had no problems. So you just got to test it for your particular rifle. Okay, so I have a theory as to why this failed, and that's because you can kind of see it on this bullet. The nose has dented a little bit. So I guess the copper is soft enough to where the nose could be able to dent. Let me see here if I can. You can see where there's a little bit of a dent impression there. And the reason why this one dented is because I dropped it on the ground. And that's possibly what happened with this one. Now, it didn't fail completely, but it didn't expand as early as it's supposed to, as it should have expanded. So I think that's what happened there. Now, there's a nice little trick with these Lehigh Defense bullets. If I could pause the video. And the video is back. Okay, so here's the nice little trick about these Lehigh Defense bullets. This is dented. The nose of this bullet is dented. This is a primer pocket deburring tool, a flash hole deburring tool, and that hole on the Lehigh Defense bullets is cavernous. So what I would do is actually go backwards, so that you're not really shaving off too much material. You can go backwards on it, and it will make that back and around. And then maybe I actually could shave some material.
And this is if you really felt like it. I would just use this bullet as a tester round. But let's say you loaded up a whole bunch of bullets and you're like, oh snap, what do I do? Well, you could do this. And I wonder if that would even give it more reliable expansion at lower velocities, maybe subsonic velocities. Okay, so now that nose is nice and round. So it's a nice little trick. That's a Lyman flash hole deburring tool, but I know some other manufacturers, they make them. So I think that's probably why this failed. I have not seen it before. Okay, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. Please hit the subscribe button. Hitting the subscribe button definitely helps me a whole lot, because as I'm doing these bullet testings and I'm contacting manufacturers, they like to see subscribers. So the more subscribers I have, the more tests I could be able to do, and the more I can be able to present to you guys for future videos. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave those in the comment section below. And I will see you guys next time.